Dear colleagues, I would like to present my report on the topic, the doctrine of good emotion as golden chain of the psychology of Philo of Alexandria. The essential point of any religion is the link between the immanent and the transcendent, including the special relationship between a soul and the world. In that regard, the Greek philosophy formed two ultimate ends, the similarity to God and living in complete agreement with nature. The Judaic thinker Philo of Alexandria combined these two principles, elaborating them in the framework of Stoic doctrine of good emotions, εὐπάθειαι in Greek. What emotions are, according to the Stoic? Emotion is an impulse of the mind according to the sensual impression. On the one hand, they are passions, anger, envy, jealousy, and so on. Excessive impulses which flow from the wrong state of the mind. These are passions emerging as a result of incorrect judgment of the mind when we choose that which should not be chosen and avoid that should not be avoided. On the other hand, they are good emotions resulting from the correct action of the mind. So according to the Stoic, both emotion and thinking are the constitutive act of the mind, and there is no such thing as a purely emotionless act of the thought. The standpoint of these concepts is the harmony between an individual soul state and the nature of the world. Stoic considered the world as a living being, as Cicero explained it. The nature of the world has all movement of volition, impulses, and desires, which the Greek call hormai, and exhibit the action in agreement with these in the way that we ourselves do who are moved by emotions and sensations. According to the Stoic theory, hormai, or impulses of various kinds, are generated in the mind of the man. It's called hegemonikon, or commanding faculty of an individual due to the stimulus of various impressions coming by sensible perception. Just as the world is organized matter, so is a soul of man ought to be organized and arranged. This religion intuition implies that just as in the external world, the mind's spiritual principle must be the forming and guiding force, so in the inner world of the man must be the same. Thus, the right state of mind has its emotion coloring, that is good, rational emotions, which are opposed to the passions. These are three good emotions. In the view of the Stoic, the wise man, so far from being emotionless, is possessed of three primary and stable emotional, as well as rational disposition of joy, caution, and vision. Chara, eulabia, boulesis in Greek. Thus, patience and eŭpάθειαι, good emotions, oppose each other according to the principle of wrong and right judgments. This opposition is concentrated around the man's mind, which should be in the right state, orthos logos. The latter is the same as the state of the universe in its totality, or the logos of the universe. Here we see the link between cosmology and ethic. However, we do not have the developed teaching in Stoicism, which would embrace these two aspects. The Stoic did not clearly explain this point because of the monistic regard for ontology and psychology. Since the logos in the universe and the logos in the man are essentially the same, the position of individual and universal is after all eliminated. Nevertheless, it was not so in the system of Philo of Alexandria, with its strict distinction between the uncreated and created natures. As a result, he reveals the meaning of the good emotion eŭπάθειαι in a new way. Philo considers joy, chara, as the best and noblest and higher emotion. Chara is described as by which the soul is filled through and through with cheerfulness. It's not difficult to recognize here the Stoic definition of chara as relation elation. In Philo, we distinguish two aspects of joy, chara. The first is inner relationship between mind and senses. Philo described it in the contemplation of the world as the act of ascension of perceptible thing to God. From this flows the vision of God omnipotence and omnipresence, the world as the place of God's providence. Chara in this aspect is the understanding of the rational coherence of all things of the universe and the rational movement of the world as entirely free from evil intentions. In the other words, chara is the vision of universe as the union well-altered walled city, and oneself as its citizen. Realization of the rationality of the universe, or the logos of the universe, lead to the understanding of the good of the whole as the particular good. The other aspect of chara Philo finds in the biblical examples of God's question to man. According to Philo, questions of God urge the human mind to not be inside only, possessing its inner thoughts and conceptions or sensual expressions. It's in this way the true happiness is achieved by when mind go outside from its inner area. The joy and the laughter is the sign of this action. It's shown as immediate creative act of God in which man can share as Abraham did. Relating to Abraham, the elation by chara is described as the hearing the poetry which God makes. Here, activity of the mind outside itself is creative function is considered. God's gift of offsprings to Abraham means the reception of God's joy, creativity, or wisdom, which contrasts with earthly creativity, the false. The letter to Philo is reflected by coin. In Philo, this figure is presented as the opposition to joy, hara. This is pleasure, hedone. The next good emotion is caution. According to Stoic, the wise man will not be afraid at all, but he will be cautious. Philo gives us a new approach to caution, eulabia, as a rational emotion that is rational avoidance of bad and choosing what is good. Philo finds three reasons of rational avoiding or flight from bad, from evil. These are hatred, fear, and shame. As we will see, each of them is a rational emotion that can be correlated with Stoic doctrine. The two first, hatred and fear, are represented by Jacob, the biblical patriarch. Philo takes into consideration Jacob's flight from Esau to Haran. Following the advice of his mother Rebecca, Jacob is guided by fear. We again encounter a symbol of the senses. This time Philo so interprets Haran, where Jacob goes. The fear that Jacob is guided avoids the irrational forces or wrath and anger which can subdue the man's rational principle. Also, it's a sort of pretense, hypocrisia, or cunning the reason, allowing the mind to find itself in the sensual realm, accommodate itself to outward things, subduing patience and sense perceptions, and make the best possible use of them. So Jacob's flight from Esau, Philo turns into the mind's finding its dwelling place, oikos. Hence, the flight to Haran, Philo sees from the perspective of mind's growth, or as a necessary condition of mind's education. Life in Haran should become the true education, or true paideia. It's an opportunity to make precise scrutiny of all that is peculiar to Laban, even the triumphs of vainglory which are accounted as so brilliant. Laban was characterized by a lack of practice or negligence, which was related to a lack of culture or education, apaudesia. Based on this position, Philo condemns false aestheticism and the selfishness, avoiding social life. Thus, the fear of Jacob is a sort of watchfulness or caution that is recognized as Stoic rational emotion, caution. In Philo, we also find correspondence with the third positive emotion of Stoic wishing, boulesis, which was characterized by them as the counterpart of desire or craving, since its rational appetency. This eŭpάθειαι contains two opposite wills, the rational and irrational, and the first suppressed the second. Also, wishing as a rational state is a submission or yielding to another authoritative position. In Philo, the features of Stoic vision we find in reverence, ideos, which the Judaic thinker puts among fear and hatred as a motif of flight of the soul. According to Philo, reverence is the outward expression of inward modesty. In the reverence that prompted Hagar to leave the house of Abraham, yielding to Sarah's will, in the example of the departure of Hagar, Philo finds the mind state to seek the truth, but without the ability to reach it by itself. However, reverence promotes the mind soul to find the road of discipline in all a highway thoroughly safe and well guarded. In this way, soul meets the divine monitor who leads it to wisdom. This moment to Philo is reflected in the conversation between the angel and Hagar in Genesis. Philo emphasized the problem of progress of soul's education, namely an initial point where a soul must be humble and to understand its divine source and its weight in life. It allows the soul to reach the guidance by the divine logos as its monitor to reach the way of truth. This intercommunication between the human and divine realms is characterized both in ontological and psychological terms. According to Philo, we should pray to the Logos, who is at once high priest and king, may live in our soul as monitor. A prayer to the Logos is unusual for the Stoic. However, it's essential for Judaic theology of Philo. Nevertheless, Philo's exhortation to pray to the Logos conveys the same idea reflected by the Stoics' concept of vision as well-reasoned desire. The presence of the Logos of God in human souls is a gift from God, and it's not a constituting part of human nature. Here we see a combination of rational and religious ideas. Thus, the divine Logos and human nature are portrayed by Philo in the flexible and dialectical connection, natural relationship adjoined with personal experience. We can sum our report in the next. Philo elaborates on the Stoic doctrine of the good rational emotions, eŭpάθειαι, joy, hara, caution or watchfulness, eulabeia, and vision, boulesis. The common point for both the Stoic and Philo is the link between man's mind and the logos of the universe. That means the intersection between cosmology and ethic. Man's attitude towards the universal logos is reflected in the mind's actualization in its faculties, emotions, and vice versa. Philo received this concept and set it in the framework of Judaic theology, which postulated the created and uncreated natures and a man between them. Philo avoids Stoic monism and regard the problem of self-determination of an individual mind in the light of the relationship between man's mind and the world's logos as two distinct essences. Thank you for your attention.